That's what it's about, and that's what our mission is here. That's the answer to why are we here. We're here logged on to these avatars in this virtual reality to learn how to make choices on the side of love. So we make the choices because of love, because of our caring, because of our compassion. Those are the choices we're here to make. The opposite side of love, the direct opposite, is fear. Okay? Fear is very self-centered. Fear is all about me. And you make choices about you. What can I get? How can this affect me? How can I manipulate things to come out the way I want? How can I make sure that, my kids grow up and become doctors and lawyers? How do I make sure that my wife does this and that the way I want, or my husband doesn't throw his socks and underwear on the floor? How can I make my life be the way I want it to be? And that is fear.
Right.
You see, that's fear talking. So if it's about you, then it's about fear. And don't trick yourself, because a lot of people will say, well, I force my kids to do this and this because I love them. It's all about love. Well, no, it's about you. You need your kids to do that. You see, it's you. That's coming out of fear. You fear that your kids may crash and burn, end up druggies, or, dysfunctional or unhappy, and you don't want that for them, and you fear it. So now you do these things.
Right.
But if you just love them, then you don't tell them what to do, unless they're very young. But if they're old enough, then you give them guidance, not direction. They have to make their own choices. So if you give them direction, do this, do that, oh, don't do that, no, I forbid you to do this, that is you imposing your free will on them and on their free will, and they will resent it. And they will probably, if they're teenagers, do exactly the opposite of what it is you forbid them to do. They'll have to do the opposite because they're trying to become their own person, and they can't, somebody else trying to manipulate them and be their person for them is just antithetical to what they're about in that phase of their life. So you will definitely force them into being what you don't want them to do if you try to tell them what to do. Right. You just need to give them guidance, but let them make the choices. And whatever choice they make, good, bad, or indifferent, you love them and you support them, and you don't say, I told you so. You just keep giving them guidance, particularly when they ask. Right. But some people would say, well, my kids would never ask. I have to butt into that. That's not true. If you're not judgmental and you're not telling them what to do, they'll ask. They'll value your opinion because they know you're not going to tell them what to do. You're going to help them make a good decision, and they appreciate that. So the kids don't ask because they're afraid you're going to be judgmental and tell them they're wrong. Oh, that's wrong. You shouldn't do it that way. Just do what I tell you because I'm right and I know I'm older and you don't. So just do what I say. That's not helpful to them. They can't grow up that way. So they'll recoil from that. So they will come and ask you. I had my kids would come ask me anything. My daughters would come and, ask me about sex and, what should they do next? And this happened and that happened and so on. And for daughters to come to their fathers and talk about things like that is pretty bizarre in our culture. But they knew they could come talk to me because I would not judge them. I would not tell them, oh, you're a naughty girl for doing those things. No, you back away from that. I wouldn't do that. I'd just basically say, well, here's the upsides, here's the downsides. Here's the choices you've made. Here's some of the places they might lead. And I made sure I found a little bit of good and bad in every choice. There was a little bit of something there that was positive and something that was negative in probably every choice. But let them weigh how much negative and how much positive was there in those choices. Let them weigh that out in all their choices, because there's almost nothing that's just pure black or pure white. Everything generally has some gray and a little bits of white or little bits of black in it, places where you can get messed up or get caught. So I just outlined them the best I could and say, well, go back out in life and, do the best you can. And they would be very grateful for that, because even if they decided to do what I thought would be the wrong thing, at least they'd have this information of mine that said, well, if you do it this way, expect this kind of thing would happen, and that may lead to that kind of thing, which would go there, and that's kind of the way that works. And if they start down that path and they see that first thing happening, then they see that second thing happening, well, they know they back out right away, because they know that third and fourth thing I told them about is on the way, and they don't want that. So it makes them smarter in being able to decide whether something's a good course or a bad course, or whether they're making good decisions or bad decisions more easily. But they have to figure that out on their own. So no, you can't say, well, I boss my kids around because I love them. I boss my spouse around because I love them. I do whatever. That's not it. If you boss people around, you're being arrogant and you're overrunning their free will, and you need to let them be whoever they are. And then you have to deal with whoever they are. Right. And if that's a problem for you, then discuss it, talk about it, but don't try to manipulate.